Thank you for the introduction. I hope you enjoy lunch and that you don't fall asleep during my presentation. So again, my name is Karla Garcia. I am technical service at Hort Americas, and my job is to try to provide information for growers to be the bridge between science and the growers. So I hope to do a good job today delivering useful information for you. So we're going to speak about substrate and irrigation management for strawberry, and we are going to start speaking about substrates. Yesterday we learned a little bit, a lot about substrate in one of the presentations. So one of the advantages of the use of substrate is that we have more control on the root zone. So we are able to provide a specific physical and chemical characteristic to the root zone, which is better for irrigation management. We can be more precise, and with that we can have more consistent results. We're supposed to have more consistent results and more predictable results. And there are a lot of substrates available. As we learned yesterday, there is not like a perfect substrate for a strawberry. There are different options, but we need to know there are specific characteristics that we need to look when using different types of substrates. So we know that strawberry is very sensitive on the root zone, and here you can see a picture. So most of the information that I'm sharing is from Dr. Sherry's Kubota lab. She works a lot with a strawberry, and she was my advisor when I was in grad school. So I totally rely on her information because I know she do a great job in this kind of research. So in here, we can see two different cultivars, Camino Real and Albion. They were grown under same environmental conditions, same nutrition, just different substrates. So we can see in here that the plant is really sensitive to the root zone. And if you look, we have 100% coconut coir in there, and the plant looks like really bad. And then this is because there are different kinds of substrate, and in cocoa we have a lot of flexibility on the porosity, so there are different kind of coconut coir. So we need to look for something that fits for a strawberry. So if we optimize root zone, we can improve the yield by 30%. So that important is to be able to select correctly where we are using at the root zone level for a strawberry. And I'm not just speaking about the substrate, but also about the irrigation. So for this, if we want to learn a little bit more about substrate, we need to learn about the physical properties and chemical properties. Physical properties, we have porosity, water holding capacity, drainage, and volume. All of them are really important for a strawberry, and I'll be covering all of them today. And chemical properties, we can mention nutrient content, electrical conductivity, pH, and cation exchange capacity. Also, strawberry is very sensitive to all of them. So let's speak about porosity. Porosity is really important in a strawberry. The plant doesn't like to have a lot of water on the roots, so it's really important to maintain not just the perfect substrate that delivers the air porosity that we need, which is about 15%, but also the irrigation, because if you irrigate a lot, you will reduce the porosity. You will fill all the pores, and you will have less oxygen on the root zone. So let's always think about those things together, porosity and also the irrigation management. And we look for 50% of water holding capacity. What is porosity? Porosity is the amount of volume of air. And again, if you put water in a substrate with high porosity, you will reduce the availability of oxygen at the root zone. So for a strawberry, we recommend to have water retention from 50 to 65%. We always want to have good porosity and drainage. Remember, strawberry doesn't like to have a lot of water on the roots, so we need to drain everything that we irrigate. Some options of substrate that we know that works well with the strawberry. One option is coconut coir. I think this is one of the most common substrates that we use for a strawberry. But again, we need to be careful on how we select the kind of substrate that we're using, because there are a lot of options in coconut coir. So probably, for example, an option that works well with tomato, it won't work well with a strawberry. So be careful to select a brand that you know that works for a strawberry, or at least to look for the characteristics that we already learned about air porosity and water holding capacity. And these substrates tend to accumulate salts, so it's always important when you are doing irrigation to know about the salt retention of coconut coir. And when you get the substrate, sometimes you need to wash the substrate, depends on the brand. So you also need to ask about that. Then we have peat moss. Peat moss is a great substrate for strawberry in mix with other substrate because it doesn't have porosity. It's very low porosity substrate, but is acid, which is good for the pH that we require for this plant. Then we have perlite. Perlite is very high in porosity, so we usually don't use this substrate alone because the drainage is too much, and sometimes we have to irrigate a lot. And remember that strawberry doesn't like a lot of water on the roots. So we use this substrate as an option for mixing with different kind of substrates. This is a mix that was developed by the Dr. Kubota lab. I was able to use this mix also during my research with very good results. So if you want to mix your own substrate, this could be a good recipe that you can follow. And of course, there are also some options that are available out there that are already finished that you can use directly, like for example, Jiffy. We had some trials in North Americas with Jiffy and also having good results. And this is unrelisted, in case you want to adventure yourself in organic production of strawberry. And another important topic about the root suit management in a strawberry is the volume. And this speaks not only about the substrate that you're using, but also about the hydroponic system that you're using. Sometimes we want to do, for example, NFT channels. We want to use NFT channels for a strawberry because the plant is small and will fit, but remember that these plants requires at least 2 liters of substrate per plant if we want to maintain the conditions and the root zone. So this is why we rely on the use of bags and also the trucks of gutters. So now let's speak a little bit about irrigation. So I think this topic is a little bit challenging because it will depend, at the end of the day, it will depend on your conditions in the greenhouse or outside if you're in a tunnel. So I will try to deliver information that is useful, that you can follow, but at the end will depend on the conditions of your system. So this plant is sensitive to high volume of water and very low volume of water in the root zone. So we always will try to deliver small amounts of irrigation in different events through the day. And the best way to do it is by using drip irrigation system. We have some trials also with Grodan using, for example, ebb and flow system. The plant doesn't like that. So we rely in the drip irrigation as the best option for irrigating a strawberry, which is what we use also in soy production. So drip irrigation is designed to provide a small amount of nutrients in each irrigation event. And when we speak about drip irrigation, we can cover different topics like, for example, the capacity of the system. It's always important to know how much water is going to be required and also the flow rate that is required by the plant. So I will be speaking about that and provide some examples that we use for strawberry. So when we speak about irrigation, we can evaluate this speaking about capacity, uniformity, and irrigation control, which is the amount of water that we are delivering. So again, capacity is always important to know how much water, which would be the maximum amount of water that you would require. I will provide some examples so you can get an idea, because obviously during the summer you will require more water than during the winter. Another important aspect is uniformity. For this, we can approach this kind of problem. If we don't have a good uniformity in the greenhouse, for example, we can divide. We recommend to divide the system so you can have different sectors with the possibility to change the irrigation management. And this is because, for example, if you are in a greenhouse with a wet wall and also exhaust fans, you can have a difference of 10 degrees Celsius in the same greenhouse. So this is why if you want to maintain more uniform irrigation, more uniform conditions at the root zone, sometimes you can do this kind of arrangement in the greenhouse. Why uniformity is important? Because all growers, we want to predict, we want to have the plants, to know our plants and have the product ready when we want. So if we have uniformity, we will be able to control the root zone and have more consistent results. How can we increase uniformity when we use drip irrigation system? We recommend to have large number of emitters. Usually it's one per plant, or at least one, like 2 plants, but usually it's one per plant. And in comparison with other type of irrigation, like for example, sprinkles, it's better to use emitters because it creates more uniform irrigation. And of course, uniformity decreases over time, and this is because sometimes the emitters can get blocked by the salt, so you need to check that. And also the substrate sometimes can get more compact, so it will tend to have a difference when you have more time in the cycle. Now, let's speak about the irrigation control. I think this is the most difficult one. How many irrigation events, how much water do we need to apply? That's the question that I get all the time from the growers. So again, by the end of the day, it will depend on your greenhouse or your system, but let's try to manage this in the best way possible. So we can do irrigation schedule. So for this, you will have a specific time during the day where you are planning to deliver water. For a strawberry, by water I'm meaning with nutrients, right? All the time. So for a strawberry, we recommend to do irrigations of 30 milliliters per plant with a flow rate of 2 gallons per hour. Depends on the system, but this is something that we can use. And we can have a duration of the irrigation event and the length of irrigation. So that would be to create a schedule that we usually start 1 hour after sunrise and we stop during the sunset. But of course, if we have a schedule that we use all the time, we are not considering in here radiation, temperature, so what is going on with all of that? So if you are doing a scheduled irrigation, it's always good to consider that temperature radiation will affect how the plant is consuming water. This is just an example from a different crop that if you increase temperature from 14 to 16 degrees Celsius, the water uptake will increase like 30%. So this is why we cannot just rely on a schedule. I mean, a schedule is good. I think it's the most common way to irrigate. But if we can use also sensors and work, for example, with radiation, you will be able to manage better irrigation. So here we have, for example, BPD, which is vapor pressure deficit. If we have high BPD, we know that the water uptake and the nutrients will get reduced. So obviously this will affect by final the yield. So again, there are some environmental conditions that can affect how the plant is consuming water. So this is why the best way to manage irrigation is to have different tools. One is to work with time scheduling, but also in addition to have radiation. So if you have high radiation, high temperature in the greenhouse and the plant is consuming more water, you will be able to deliver more water by having sensors to measure the levels of radiation. Usually in the greenhouse, when we work in watts per square meter, when we have, for example, around 200, sometimes we do an event of irrigations. And we cannot just rely in radiation because some people also just rely in radiation for irrigation. So it's always recommended to keep both tools for creating the best irrigation management. And why is this? This is an example, and this is actually for a different crop. This is tomato, but that is not important. I just want to share, because there are not published articles on this topic for strawberry, so calling the scientists to make some research on that topic too. So I just wanted to share how is the fluctuation of the drainage. Remember, if the plant is taking more water, you will have less drainage, and that means that you need to irrigate a little bit more. So here we have, maintain your eyes where you said drainage. So at the beginning of the day, the plant is not taking that much water because we don't have that much radiation. And if we go to the middle of the day, like at noon, you will see that drainage is going down. So for a strawberry, we try to maintain the average, which is the one that you will see at the bottom, between 20 or 30. This will be enough to have enough water on the roots, and also remember that we're delivering water and nutrients. So this way you will be able also to flush the nutrients that sometimes build up in the substrate. So we always try to control irrigation in a strawberry by radiation and also by the schedule. It will depend on the conditions in the greenhouse and actually also the numbers of hours within the day, the irrigation events that you will need to deliver to your plant. And you can also work with the drainage. So when you have enough drainage, you can also stop with irrigation. This is an example, and this is actually for research done in Arizona, which is hot climate and a lot of radiation. So you can get an idea of the maximum capacity of the system. So it can fluctuate from 6 to 12 irrigation events per day. And remember, each event of irrigation is of 30 milliliters. So when we do irrigation in hydroponics, it's not that simple that just delivering water, because we're delivering nutrients too. So when we try to control irrigation in hydroponic systems, we are trying to control the nutrient delivery, the oxygen level at the root zone by the irrigation, because if we irrigate more, we have less oxygen, and of course, the substrate moisture. So nutrients are very important for a strawberry. Strawberry is very sensitive to salt, so we don't want to have more nutrients in there that are required for the plant. So this is why when we think about irrigation control, we need to always think about the drainage. We need to have a good level of drainage, a good percentage of drainage, to be able to flush all the nutrients that we don't want to build up in the substrate. And of course, for this, it's really important to check the drainage every day, sometimes more than once, to be able to know if we have any salts in the root zone. If you have, for example, an EC that is higher on the drainage than what is going in, you probably have some salts there, and you can wash with water sometimes when the electrical conductivity is above 1.2. If you want to know about good recipe, this is the summary, of course, of a recipe. If you want the full recipe, I have that too. My email would be at the end. So here you can see the amount of nutrients that the plants require. These are the major elements, and these are the minor elements. And this is for fruit production. I mean, if you are producing runners, you need obviously to change the content of nitrogen. So this plant is very sensitive to the root zone. It's very sensitive also to the amount of salts, so we always try to maintain a low EC level. And in hydroponics, in general, most of the crops, they can use like a range between 1 and 3, but a strawberry is really sensitive to salt, so we always try to maintain electrical conductivity of 1. I know that some people can debate in this topic, depends also on the cultivar, but at least for the American cultivars that we have looked at, again, I'm just following also Dr. Kubota research, we recommend to stick with low EC for having best quality of the production. pH should be between 5.5 and 6 If you, for example, don't take care about the drainage and the pH also goes up because of the salts, you can get, for example, iron deficiency when the pH is higher than 7. So you have to check this every day. And how we check this? So we need to check the drainage. Again, always check what is going in, what is going out. If you see difference on the pH or difference in electrical conductivity that is higher than 1.2, and the electrical conductivity going in is less, you will need to flush the system with water. And when we try to control irrigation, think always, because I think sometimes we forget about this, you are also changing the amount of oxygen at the root zone. And strawberry is very sensitive to this, so I'm just trying to remind you, like, check the events of irrigation that you're doing and think about not irrigating too much. How irrigation can affect the development of the plant. So again, we also need to do some research in strawberry about this topic, but we know about other crops that if we have, for example, restricted watering, so less irrigation, that will reduce leaf expansion and will make more competition for the formation of, in favor of flowers and fruits. So there will be a relation between how vegetative or how generative is your plant depending on the irrigation. So, in conclusion, how can we evaluate irrigation? We need to maintain a percentage, and for this, we need to decide the events of irrigation per day. We need to check electrical conductivity and maintain a low electrical conductivity level for strawberry, and also to check the pH, always trying to maintain between 5.5 and 6.5. If you have the perfect recipe, but the pH is out of the range, the plant is not able to take up the nutrients. So that's why pH is also important. So this is kind of a summary of irrigation for a strawberry. We recommend to deliver about 30 milliliters of nutrient solution per irrigation per plant, following the example of 6 to 12 irrigation events. That will be the amount of water that you will have per day. And remember to increase the frequency as needed to maintain 20 to 30% drainage. So there are a lot of factors affecting root zone, and strawberry is very sensitive to root zone. That could be the substrate, that could be the nutrient solution, the water source. I didn't speak about the water source, but that is really important too. You need to check your quality of water, and of course the environment. So make sure to have the correct sensors to check the conditions of your system. You need a pH meter, you need to measure electrical conductivity, you probably need also to measure radiation. If you're using a sensor like this, you need also to calibrate, don't forget that. And with that, I finished my presentation. And before finishing, this is a guide that we develop. Remember, my job is to try to provide information for growers. So this is a free guide that you can download. So if you want to take up your cell phone right now and just use the code in there, you can get the free guide. In there, you will find information about substrate, irrigation, lighting, and more. And this is my email, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.